Joining me in the studio is Professor Adeniyi, who is the Deputy Dean of the Postgraduate School at the Bayes University in Abuja. Good to see you, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Two key issues, but again, if you look at both, it still falls on data. Identification. Yes, we're talking about identifying the poorest of the poor. You go to Lagos again, we have people unaccounted for till this moment. No one knows who these people are. But again, let's start first by looking at the National Social Register. It got to a point, we were able to get a sense that not all 36 states should be asking for a review.
Well, first of all, I think identity is a problem anywhere in the world. You know, it's something like it's been said generally that is like the desert sand, you know, always at the vagaries of the wind, which means that it is fluid, it is fluctuating, it is gestating, and of course, development partners, agencies have thought about it as something that you actually need to make empirical, you know, beyond the factor of the wind. You have to make it to be as strong as possible, make it as scientific as possible, so that it can become a tool for development, you know. That's if you capture it properly, if you mine it properly. And listening to your first guest, he didn't do badly. He seems to have a very good understanding of what the job is, you know. And of course, he probably was in the picture from the beginning up to the time they folded up, if it's not still there, or up to the time this controversy is starting. He has an understanding. And of course, you also know that the technique they use is not original to us. It's an imported kind of technique, which makes it a problem, you know, because most of the time, you may not really blame us as a people. We just tend to ape and idolize, you know, parrot foreign models that does not fit our culture, our geography, our people, our understanding, you know, the configuration and stratification of our own population. And that's where the problem is starting in the first instance. You know, perhaps if that register from the beginning, ab initio, was subjected to some creative tests, you know, that will make it to be much more suitable to our own geography, our own peculiarities and patterns and particularities, maybe it would have been a different ball game, you know. But they tried, no doubt, but they tried. But they missed the ball, you know, obviously, because despite all their efforts, really, you know, there's no evidence that there is an improvement in the lifestyle, in the living condition of the average Nigerian. You know, the mass of the people are still poor. If for anything, it has even increased beyond the 133 that MBS told us are multidimensionally poor. And that's why it is gratifying that we are now, conversations around it has begun. You know, probably it will lead to improving on integrity and the credibility of that register, so that they can be, you know, it can be fundamentally helpful to our development goals and objectives.
Let me latch on the word, you know, credibility. Listening to him, listening to Kabir, we realized that the states were part of the computation, you know, of that register. And now they're asking for a review. So the question will be, well, bearing in mind that the states partook in the first one, how reliable will it be that they also come together to do another one that we can, at the end of the day, call a credible document?
Yeah, look, Suleiman, I think it's very simple. You know, I'm not sure we have a very strong system. If we want to put it simply, sometimes we refer to it as institution. And of course, this one cuts across. Institutions are not necessarily physical. Sometimes they can be virtual. They can be soft, you know. And also it can be related to regulations, to laws, you know, to continuation of governance programs, processes, and procedures. You know, if there was a genuine continuation of the past to the present, you know, it would have been seamless. And of course, there won't be this ongoing disputation. So because of our system, because there's hardly the question of continuum, and in the management of our processes and procedures, we often have this kind of thing arising. And do not forget that I said it some time ago, that actions most of the time are a function of time and space. You know, but oftentimes, you know, it should happen in the positive. But in our own case, it's happening in the negative, you know, where we're having leaders doubting themselves, not because they do not like themselves, not because they are not all concerned about making some changes, But because there are still some fundamentals that have not been dealt with. And what is that fundamental? The system, in basic, ordinary terms. But more genuinely, you refer to it as institution, as the case could be.
Speaking of which, the system, that is, does it also worry you that time was? You recall the protest, and it was discovered that the COVID-19 palliatives were stocked up, piled up by some politicians. Very unfortunate. Isn't that why some Nigerians are a little bit skeptical to say, wait a minute, why do you want a review? Perhaps you just want to corner some of these and perhaps keep for your political patrons.
No, I don't think so. Sometimes,
patronage.
Sometimes it's also good to cut them some slack. We just reinvest our hope in them because they are coming at a different time. Their philosophies might be different, their vision, their mission might be different this time. And what I have come to discover, and I'm sure you agree with me, the average political office holder, want to leave a legacy. He wants to be seen as good, as achieving, as accomplished, somebody who has come to make an impact on the people. But there's often this S factor that makes them to deviate. And sometimes it might also be our own fault because we put a lot of pressure on them, for gratifications, for different kinds of things, for rewards, for them to reward us for being loyal, coming out of patrimonial system that we operate. It could be one of many things. But the one that succeeds is the one that keeps, a very strong will, focusing on the ball and refusing, to deviate. And we have seen instances of this one. It is possible that in the new dispensation, many of these ones have also arisen, and they are trying to rejig what was done in the past so that the narrative can be different, as the case could be.
So paint for us there's a narrative already now. We're getting into Lagos, and the narrative is that the state is sneaking, go through the back doors to bury those who were killed during the 2020 Endsars protests. And the state has also kicked back, filling up the space with information needed to correct what they say is by mischief makers.
Yeah, I think what happened in Lagos is just it's an accident, an information accident. That thing to us looks very real, very genuine. It's a normal government process that happens behind that happens behind the door. But there are many of these kind of things like that go on in government. But when they come to the open, it becomes abnormal, becomes an anomaly. So if it was not leaked, it was been okay. We wouldn't have heard about it. The burial will have gone on quietly. But now that it has come out openly, it became very abnormal, very absurd, typical of the many things that go on in government. And that's why you probably would not blame Lagos State government for trying to do some damage control, but what they are doing is just a damage control. We can see through it that they actually wanted to do that burial, to bury those people for a whooping sum of 61 million, which is very, very controversial, very arguable, some even very ungodly in some circumstances, and to some faiths, it's even absolutely unnecessary, because we're talking about people who are dead, who probably need to just pray for them to go and rest, and now you want to bring out money to fund, the process of getting them to go and rest. So it seems absurd, sort of, But again, it's okay for them to come out and say something to make them look good. This is natural in public relations, information management. It's okay, but we can also see through it that they actually wanted to carry out the act. Like I said, typical of the many things that go on in government. You cannot know everything that go on in government. If you know, we'll all be on the streets. But that's the nature of government the world over, not just peculiar to Nigeria.
Professor Adeniyi, I think they call that befitting burial for 61 million. It's a fun place for us to say many thanks for being such a nice company today on the show. Well, that's it on Arise Prime Time. Do join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja is goodbye and thanks for watching.